When we woke up Monday morning, we knew something was off because the view outside of the cabin was really smoky and foggy, and it was an orange color.
We have a fire that started in the Smokies, stretched into Gatlinburg.
At one point, we were gridlocked and couldn't move. It was just very chaotic.
Oh my gosh. It's okay, we're getting out, we're getting out, we're getting out. It's okay, it's okay.
Almost every cabin in Chalet Village is burning to the freaking ground.
I really don't know if my house is still there.
It's really been an emotional day for everyone involved.
Everything you work for is gone.
It is hard. It's hard to be out here. It's hard to look at. It's a very hard situation to talk about.
It's tough talking about your friends and some people you call family.
If there's any community that can come back, it's Gatlinburg.
Fire truck still roaring up there. Any idea where they're going?
Yeah, up to my house. Everybody's dying up there. They're all on fire. All their cars are on fire. Their tires are melting to the road.
And you go by and you see that the flames are just feet away from your car when you're driving. I saw that fire just take out the entire mountain within 5 minutes.
That's not a good thing when it jumps a road, because that should be able to stop the fire.
When you're evacuating 4,000 city residents plus ever how many people were on vacation. This was a Thanksgiving weekend. The town was booked.
It's less crowded than it was. Fewer people are coming, but I'm telling you what, it's no less urgent as we have emergency vehicles constantly going through.
People are trapped inside, and you see those flames out those windows.
We managed to talk to a young fella about what he was seeing and what happened. Take a listen.
So they're keeping us in here for now, but the smoke is like really bad in here. I don't know how well you can see, but there's like smoke everywhere.
I last get a text from her saying I can't breathe, and then after that there was no response. The worst thing that I could imagine came to my thoughts, that I'm 21 and I've lost my mother.
This truck hauls down the corner of the mountain and says, "You have got to go. The fire is coming here."
The Sevier County Mayor did request that the National Guard come in.
People were screaming, how do we get out of here? How do we get back to the parkway?
You can see there's plenty of sirens that continue to come by. I do not believe that was a Sevier County Sheriff's deputy, so obviously we're getting help from other areas.
It's literally everywhere. Every turn we were making to come back, it was everywhere. And it's inside hotels, it's inside restaurants. I mean, you can't get away from it.
Talking about landslides, mudslides, or debris flows, because you put enough heavy rain on ash or scorched earth, you may have some new problems as they are presented over the next 24 to 36 hours from now.
That glow that we're looking at right there.
Yeah, so a lot of this looks like Christmas lights, but they're actually fire.
Here in Gatlinburg, this is exactly what people here are seeing. This is what they're hearing. These flames are what nightmares are made of for so many people here in Gatlinburg and Sevier County. We have heard from so many folks who have lost everything. They've lost their homes. In some cases, they've lost their jobs because the places they work were destroyed. This is one of the remote fire lines that we were able to access that is actually very difficult for many people to get to simply because majority of the roads are closed, but we were able to find a way to get back here.
He said, crying, shaken. I was evacuated from the bypass just after my 6 p.m. live shot. It was the ranger's tone that I started shaking, and he didn't want us to pack up our equipment. He just said, go now. Fire is coming.
Officials believe it was started by someone tossing a match.
Speaking as someone that lives in Sevier County, after a day like today, we've never been so happy to see just a few drops of rainfall.
This is where a lot of folks are coming who need shelter. There is a Red Cross shelter now set up here, and then we should mention that there's also a command center as well. So this is really where everybody is converging with information, shelter, help, all of the above. A volunteer who said he's a local pastor but didn't want to give his name literally started crying in front of me and said, I'm here to help other people, but I know I've lost everything that I have. He said the firefighters told them that his house did not make it on the right side of the fire line. So these are the stories that we're unfortunately hearing tonight. We'll get Chris, our photographer, to turn around. If you take a look up here, you can see where some of the cars that just went past us are actually stopped because of that downed power line up there.
Our photographer Christopher here, he had made it all the way to Chalet Village where there was a devastating loss there.
Should the evacuation have been called a little earlier? Could it have been?
And I don't know that. My sense
and I'm watching from Nashville and listening to all the interagency coordination they did an incredible job of getting everybody on the same page quick. You know, the fire came out of the national park. They quickly let the local folks know. I don't know the answer to your question, but from where I was watching, it looked like the interagency cooperation was really outstanding.
How hard has this been for you to come out here and see this house that you actually grew up in, now just rubble on the ground?
You know, a few years ago it would have been really tough, but you know, faith gets you through everything.
The main thing that has people pretty confused in all this is you see all these houses, and then you see this one right through the middle of these two burned down houses completely intact. Even their Christmas decorations still up.
You had a 4-hour drive with your guys. How do you prep them to battle this? Because you told me this is unlike anything you've ever seen.
It is. This is the largest fire I've ever seen in my life.
We didn't want anybody to burn. We knew they were helpless.
Matthew and Brian saved 14 people that night. Stopping is their only regret.
I would have drove through hell and back. I would have driven through another 5 feet of fire and another tree in the way. I would have knocked whatever it had to happen down, try to get to the rest of the cabins on this mountain, and I would have never stopped until I'd gotten every person off.
This is the first face that we've been able to put on a list of now 10 victims, 10 lives so far taken in these fires.
Around 8:30, I got the phone call from my mother, frantic that the house was on fire.
That was the last time James Wood heard his mother's voice.
She didn't make it. She didn't make it out of the house at all.
James moved his mother to a Gatlinburg cabin so he could retire and she could enjoy the mountains.
He cannot find his wife and 2 daughters. Around 8 o'clock last night, he went down the mountain to see how close the fire was getting to their home. When he turned around to drive back up to the house, he couldn't get back up. And he has not heard from his wife and 2 daughters. This is very telling. We found this board earlier today, if you want to take a look. Handwritten notes posted to this board in search of information about missing people. Sometimes notes left for those missing, asking for family members to call home. This is a story we've heard all too much about. I don't know, Carrie, if you can get a little bit closer to this note, but the Reed family, Michael Reed, cannot find his 2 daughters and his wife. A note written here saying, call your husband, Michael Reed, or Brenda. And the note is to his wife, Constance, and his 2 young daughters, Lily and Chloe.
This actually is like a miracle to me because of I didn't have another place to go.
That is a 10-year-old little girl now living in the shelter, telling us she believes this place is a miracle.
There are still so many families who are holding on hope that they'll find one, like this woman I talked to today.
My grandmother, Pam Johnson, she is missing. She's been missing for 3 days. People say that she's alive and other people say that she's not. We are just trying to find her. I'm very, very concerned for her. She has not contacted anybody. We don't know her whereabouts. If anybody has any information, just please let us know.
With a garden hose in his hand, stood there in the middle of this fire trying to save his home.
I had to do everything that I could do to try to protect my home with just a water hose. You realize you're in danger, but I did take the water hose and kept myself wet down.
This was her family's livelihood.
Everything around here was still smoking, and it's devastating. I mean, that's all my father's done his whole life. I don't know what they're going to do.
Now they're wanting to coordinate all those volunteer efforts with Volunteer East Tennessee. They have a headquarters set up at 1304 on the Parkway in Sevierville. You can go there, sign up. They'll match your skill set with what you'll be able to help with, and then from there, they'll give you a location to help.
They say they arrested 2 juveniles who are responsible for starting the wildfires that killed 14 people, injured more than 80, and destroyed thousands of structures.
He's going to check your information and then let you in to see your property.
Past the checkpoint, the first drive home since Monday. Destruction goes on for miles.
I can't stop shaking.
Without a clue if home was still standing.
Fingers crossed. Looks good.
Unlike a lot of their neighbors, the Stites came home to a building untouched by the flames.
It looks just like we left it.
All day our team was on the air working with WIVK Radio, taking your calls and all those generous donations. Listen to this total amount raised, $315,311. Fantastic.
I tell you, we are Smoky Mountain strong, and we're keeping on going.